uses Google Drive for Teams. This is an earlier class that I've done specifically for a nonprofit, just getting people onboarded to what Google Drive is. So I've kind of enhanced it in a way that is more targeted towards teams. I find myself actually using and training teams that I work with on Google Drive because it really allows a lot of benefits for collaboration. So in this webinar, we'll be talking about broadly what Google Drive is, what tools it has that really helps your team to work together and to build a history, as well as providing access and protecting access to your Google Drive documents, how to organize your drive, as well as the best practices on some of the administrative maintenance that Google Drive needs. And then finally, holding meetings and how to hold meetings using Google Drives and specifically Google Docs to really help your team build and learn and work together and have a usable tool to reference as they work on their projects. So what is Google Drive? Pretty much it's a cloud-based file storage system, which means that most of the data and document storage is contained on servers outside of a single system in your home. It's easily accessed via the internet, and so it synchronizes on multiple devices, and it pretty much synchronizes in real time so that you and your team can store files, but also see files created before their eyes. So why use it? What does it do to really help your team? One of the things is it's accessible as long as you have an internet connection. And so you think about going from your team having one document on one computer and another document on another computer, and you have to wait on someone to move forward with your project. It really allows you to be able to access what documents you need as long as they're all shared in that same drive. Your team can work and make changes collaboratively. So Google Documents and Google Presentations and Sheets, anyone can work on them as long as you're using the same link for that document. You can see those changes and work on those changes from almost anywhere with an internet connection. So it has a lot of file storage, 15 gigabytes per user. So that's huge. So it really depends on who's hosting the folder, but your team could really share a lot of documents, unless you're like in videos, because those tend to eat up a lot of gigabytes. But even buying extra storage comes at a fairly low cost if you find yourself using 15 gigabytes. So there are built-in sharing controls, which goes back to that access piece. You can keep Google Drive fairly private if needed and really allow only people within your organization to access what you need. It's similar to Microsoft Office. And so I know I approach and talk about Google Drive with people who are Microsoft Office diehards. And, some of them believe it's wildly different, but there might be a slight learning curve, but most of the menus and commands are very similar. And I think it's kind of like, a Mac and a Windows and a PC, right? Once you learn how to right click on a Mac, you really can get the catch of it, or vice versa. So ways to find Google Drive. If you're introducing a new team member who's not used to it, it's good to know some of the multiple ways that you can find it. One is just inputting the address in the address bar. I use drive.google.com. Or you can click a menu. If you have a Google Chrome page, you could click that menu. If you're not using Google Chrome, then you'll want to use the address bar. Or you can download the app and open it on your mobile device. So, once you bring your team member in, you'll want them to be able to access your documents fairly quickly. That's a good way to get your team to know the organization, kind of know the level of organization and how the organization is functioning and communicates internally, but you may not want them to have complete and utter control over all of your documents and the ability to make changes. So you want to make sure that you consider the access that you are providing. And then I'll actually show how to provide access. So, first, I believe for teams, you want to make sure you review any policies that you have on access. And if you don't have some, create some, because that'll allow for that guidance as to what your future leaders should be doing when it comes to sharing documents and folders. So, if you're just building out that access piece and you're trying to determine who gets to do what, consider your organizational structure. Um, so, consider the hierarchy. You would want the person at the top to kind of have access to everything, while some people in one division may only need access to files in that division. Some people in another may only need access to files in another. But luckily, you can share folder by folder. So even if they only have some pieces of an organization, they don't have to have access to all. Um, you want to think about providing access based on projects. So, who's the person who's working on the project? Who deserves to go into that folder piece? And then you want to think about updating frequently as people come and go throughout the organization. Providing and taking, revoking access is important. Because they're not with your organization, they really shouldn't have access to future changes. Um, Decide if people are going to have open access to everything, or some people will only have some access to some things. It goes back to your policy, but whatever you decide on, do it consistently, because then that allows for that momentum to build with your administrative files. So, a little bit more onto providing access. You want to consider making your folders private and view only. So, if you're starting out as a grassroots organization, as one that I've worked with, or you're a large organization, you want to consider making all your folders private, meaning that only certain people can access your folders. So Google has the option to be public. If you're sharing a link to your folder, you want to be careful because sometimes it'll change the privacy of your folder to anyone with a link can access it. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you know who you are giving access to and add them as a user so that they have that access. And they'll want a Google account. So you might want to consider that too. Also, view only. So you've given everyone access, but should everyone have the right to edit every document? That may not be the case. You know, it might go back to who's working on this project, so who has edit access. So if you create your folder as a view only, you can actually go in and change edit permissions on a document by document basis, but that's up to you. You may just want everyone who has access to the folder to be able to edit everything. Or if you want, and then you change certain documents to view only. So it really just depends on your policies and procedures. And then finally, your permissions. As we said, there are different types of permissions that you can give to people. Another permission that you can think of is the comment option. So, should people be able to just comment on the folder without having to edit the document? So, some best practices for using Google Drive. So, creating a folder. If you're thinking about creating a folder and you're already in the organization or you're just a team member, you want to see if one already exists. It makes no sense to create folder after folder after folder for different things, maybe based on different dates. Like, if that is not a logical application for the system, then you probably should stay away from complicating with too many folder creations. So try your hardest to find the parent folder if you're thinking about creating a folder. So if you don't know, ask someone who's in the senior leadership if one exists. And if none truly exists, then think of the broadest category that you could create that folder to be so that people have a parent home for future related documents. Um, so that's part two. So once you create that folder, you want to share it with your team right away, and then make sure that you communicate that you shared that folder, what the name of the folder is, and what to use and store within that folder. So you want to try to avoid creating a folder system more than 3 folders deep. So I'll be able to show you a two-part one in a second. Document creation. So this is within the folder as you create your documents. I think it's very important that you consider creating as many documents in your folders so that your team can access it directly and right away. If it's something that is eventually going to be published, you want to mark draft so that people know, or control those permissions so no one can edit or publish or download. Um, ensure that documents are clearly titled and that there's a date applied to them if it's necessary, like meeting minutes or a strategic plan that has a start and end date. So if you don't want to share a document, you can create documents in your own drive. But if it's eventually meant to be shared, it's important that you add it to that folder eventually so that it's not just existing in your storage alone. And then you want to archive things that are no longer active and make it clear to your team that those are no longer accessible or applicable to what you're doing. So now that we've given access and we've created the folders and documents within the folders, you also want to think about sharing and using everything that you create as a tool for future use, not just a document that exists as a document, but something that you will return to, you will update, and you will be able to really use to communicate with your team. So within documents that you create, using the comment system, suggesting edits, and using all of the tools that the document has to communicate with the people who are on that project and who need to know. So we'll go a little bit deeper into that with the meetings. So tips for meetings. This goes back a little bit more deeply into everything that we've kind of discussed. It is critical that you create specific titles for documents that you create within your folders. So I like to think of that parent folder as what the document name should be. So if you're on the service committee and the service committee has a service committee folder and you want to create an agenda for it, then label that name as opposed to just meeting agenda, because that goes back to helping you with the search, which is what another great feature of Google Drive is, that everything's searchable. So the more specific you are, the easier it is to find what you're looking for. Once again, every document should have a home. It's really easy to just create documents, and have it all available on the main page. And because everything's searchable, meaning you would find it. But for the purpose of leading others who are new to your team and who are getting acquainted to what you're doing, it's critical to have major themes or domains or categories that help them understand the structure of what you're doing. Um, so Google Drive, Google Documents, and Slides and the other G Suite materials has a really awesome commenting system where you can actually assign action items, and those action items will be emailed out to the person that you tagged. And then once you mail or share the document itself, it actually creates a separate section of just action items for people to look at. You also want to revisit this document. So I think in the good old days when you printed things, it was easy to print them, put it on your desk, and you have the gist of what you're doing, but a lot of times you don't revisit this created physical thing. You have to think of the documents that you create in Google Drive as your evergreen materials. Instead of creating an annual plan every year, you'll just create one document that's annual plan and maybe update from there. So you want to consider working within your things with an eye of the longevity that it holds. And then finally, if you're taking meeting minutes and you're using this document to take your minutes and communicate things you talk about in meetings, share the minutes. Well, share the document that you're writing in immediately after the meeting to your team. And what I like to do is share it directly to the email so that people can go ahead and see what you all wrote in their email so that they don't have to click any links to get there, but they know it's there if they need to access it later. Okay, so now I'm going to do the live walkthrough of the Google Drive. So this is our team folder. It's a top level folder that you're sharing with your team. I'm not sharing it with anyone right now, but I will show you that in a second. So you can see the organization of our folder. We have meetings where we keep our agendas and minutes, projects that we're working on, and classified, which is a private folder that only I should have access to. So first we want to check our permissions. So you go down and you select share. And this is where you can create your permissions. So you have advanced, you'll click advanced to see who has access. And right now it's private to only me. So to add people to your team, I'm going to add my sister. She will be added. I'm not going to notify her, but you might want to notify your team that they're being added and press OK. So now the privacy has changed to specific people can access. Um, so that is definitely one of the things that you want to do. Next, you can change her permissions. So she can organize, add, and edit in the folder, or she can view only. So we're going to change it to view only. And so now every folder underneath the team folder is a view only for her. So that's sharing access as well as a bit of organization for the team. Now I'm going to show what using a document and naming that document should be like. So you're going to have your meeting coming up. It's the 11:20 party planning meeting. So everyone's getting together to plan a birthday party. So we're just going to call it the party planning meeting. Make it really specific. And then 11/20/18. And that's just how I keep my dates, but you can date it however you want. So we'll have that agenda already written, food, location. All right. So one of the things that you definitely want to do is tag people. So if you have someone, Zola, right? Find a vendor. You can highlight the command and click the comment button. And then you click at and tag that person that you want to tag. And then go the next step and assign it to that person. So they'll be notified and then it'll be up to them to mark it as done, or you can mark it as done as well. So we got to make sure we share. So since she has view access only, they're asking me to update it to comment or edit. So we're going to give her the comment access so she still can't edit this document itself. Right. And so once you send that in an email, you'll really see how that action item looks. So I'm going to write a few more things just so the email looks a little bit full. So we're going to put get party gifts, right? And then I'm going to tag that to myself. So you can also highlight it, right click, and press comment. Zynga. And sometimes it'll do it for you. I don't know how. Oh, well, if you write like Zynga to get party gifts, let's see if it'll do it. Zynga to get the driver. Maybe. No. Sometimes it does. I don't know how to do it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and now that we're done with our meeting, share it to our team. So we got to make sure we have our team here. Right. So shared with Zola. Done. Press email collaborators and then paste the item into the email. Here are the notes from our meeting. And I'm going to send it to myself as well so that we can see what an email looks like. All right, so this is what an email looks like. It's shared to everyone that's in the team. It gives a snapshot, and you can see these boxes are the action items. So, of course, I've written more sophisticated agendas than this, but it really helps show how simplified Google Drive can be. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know. I really look forward to going over the next cool tool you should use to build your team. Thanks. Bye.